Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Chat. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are talking about the man called Sting, the icon, Sting, the Stinger, if you will. He just had his last match ever in AEW, and he's heading to retirement. So yeah, I've been really, torn about it. I've been very upset about it. I can't believe Sting is retiring, Yeah, just kind of makes me a little sad, but I'm so glad that things went so well, and I think AEW did a great job with that. I have to give them props. He was able to go out on his own terms, the way he wanted to go out. And he went out with a bang, and he went out as tag team champion with Darby Allin there. So it was really cool. And very fitting end to his career. So I got to give AEW props for that. They always handled Sting pretty well, They always gave him a lot of respect. And with that being said, I just wanted to come on here and pay my respects to the Stinger, who I grew up watching, and he was one of my idols in professional wrestling, without a doubt. I've been following his career since the 1980s, folks. Going back all the way back to 1988. And I used to see him on NWA television back when it was called the National Wrestling Alliance. They had their show on Saturdays at 6 o'clock. The first huge match that I saw Sting in, of course, was the Clash of the Champions in 1988, which was airing the same time as WrestleMania. And man, that was huge. That's when I really became a Sting fan. I was like, wow, this guy's awesome. He's so strong. He's got a cool look. He got the face paint, the spiked blonde hair. He's a powerhouse. He's an amazing athlete. Look at this guy. And he was taking on Ric Flair, of course, the absolute legend, having an amazing match for the World Championship, which I believe ended in a draw, and it was a long, 45-minute match. It was insane, and I was so hyped, I was gonna get WrestleMania, but I'm glad I didn't, because then I wouldn't have seen this awesome match, So yeah, ever since then, I've been a huge fan of Sting, followed his career, every turn, every path that he took, every era of Sting, since then, and I just love everything that he's done, every step in his career. Followed him. Obviously, he's known as the franchise of WCW. His run in WCW is absolutely historical, one of the greatest ever. So before that, in WCW, he was like the Hulk Hogan of the NWA/WCW. And then when Hulk Hogan actually came into WCW in 1993, it did seem like it kind of pushed Sting to the background a little bit, because Hulk Hogan was such a massive star coming in from WWF, But Sting was always very cool about it. He had a lot of respect for Hulk, he's willing to work with him, so you gotta respect that. And then WCW started getting, the Macho Man, all these other people from WWF came in, and, things started getting bigger, and then they came up with Monday Nitro debuted and was hugely successful. And, Sting was certainly a part of that. And he was a part of that big match where the NWO third man was revealed, to be Hulk Hogan. Then you had the incredible popularity of the NWO, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall together, the Outlaw Band. And you had one guy go up against him, and that was Sting. So Sting kind of took a dark turn, and he became the Sting that he is today, basically that Crow-style Sting with the white makeup and the long trench coat and the baseball bat, and sometimes he came out with the Crow too. But yeah, that had to be the biggest run of his career, and it was just amazing. He'd come down from the rafters, from the the cable, amazing stuff. So awesome. I always loved that there could be 30 members of the NWO in the ring. It didn't matter. If Sting came out, they were all running like wildfire. They wanted no part of Sting, especially Hulk, I just loved that. It was so much fun. But he was the one obstacle in the way of the NWO, and it was amazing. It was such a great battle of wills. You had the good guy, the franchise of WCW taking on the ultimate bad guy in Hollywood, Hulk Hogan, and his outlaw band of misfits. But yeah, and eventually, of course, the WCW folded, and he was the one there at the end, at the very end of WCW, having that last match with Ric Flair. And then when that happened, it was like, oh man, where does he go from here? Because I remember for a long time, after the WCW folded, some of them went over to WWE. Eventually, the NWO went over to WWE and stuff like that. Goldberg went there, all those people from WCW. Nash and Scott Hall went back. So I was always like, where's Sting? What's he doing? How come he didn't go to WWE? And I was like, maybe he just doesn't want to. Maybe he was just the franchise of WCW. He didn't want to be in anything else. And then he ended up showing up in TNA, Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling. And I was like, wow. Now, at that time, I remember I watched TNA a couple times. Maybe I didn't really think a whole lot of it. Today, of course, I'm a huge TNA fan. You've seen that on my channel. But yeah, Sting went over to TNA, Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling. And, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to help people. He wanted to help put over some of the younger talent and still have some great matches of his own. He had plenty of gas left in the tank, so he had some amazing matches with Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe and all these people. He had a great run in TNA, which lasted 11 years. And he did end up going against Hulk Hogan at Bound for Glory back in, 2012, 2011? Yeah. So people always were asking, why'd you go to TNA instead of WWE, Because he had saw that a lot of the people that went over there weren't used properly, like DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, and Booker T he wasn't really used very well at that time, They felt like they were second-class citizens, So he didn't want the same thing to happen to him. That's why he never went to WWE. And of course, once his run with TNA was over, he did eventually decide to go over to WWE. And he had his little brief run there, which I was always disappointed with because, I felt like they didn't really give him the respect he deserves. Maybe he shouldn't have gone there. But he did have that one big match at WrestleMania where there was 100,000 people there, and he had his big match with Triple H, and that was really cool. It was great to see him in front of that huge, massive crowd in the grandest stage of them all, with Triple H, and they had the NWO come out to the ring, the DX come out to the ring, and it was like, Monday Night Wars all over again, and that was so much fun. But I feel like after that, they didn't do a whole lot with him, and he did have that scary accident during that match with Seth Rollins, where Seth Rollins gave him the buckle bomb in the corner, and he he had an attack, almost like a stroke or something, he fell down, and it was like, oh, so they had to end the match, and that was the end of his, everybody thought that was the end of his career, that he was done, and he did leave WWE, and it seemed as though he was retired. And then he kind of did some indie appearances, doing meets and greets, which is where I got my autograph of Sting right there, and that also has Lex Luger there too. But yeah, so happy got to get his autograph, at one of the indie shows that they did called Big Time Wrestling. So awesome. So happy I got that. I will always cherish that. And yeah, that was a great show. I got to see, that was actually the first time I got to see him in person, live, at this little indie show. And that's something he had never really done since his days with the Ultimate Warrior, But yeah, that was so cool. Such a great experience, because even though I had gone to a couple WCW pay-per-views, and I went to a couple Monday Nitros for WCW, I didn't really get to see Sting at those, The one Nitro I went to, he was there, but he was like way up in the rafters doing his whole crow Sting thing, where you would just watch from up in the rafters, but I didn't get to see him in the match or anything. Because at that time, he wasn't really having matches. He would just kind of show up, and beat up the NWO with a baseball bat or something, But at that particular show, he just was in the rafters, and that was his only appearance. So it's great to finally see him live. And then I did see him years later at one of the TNA shows called Slammiversary, which was in Boston, and he was going up against Bully Ray for the TNA World Championship, and that was great. I was so excited. I made a whole cool sign to hold up that saying with Sting on it. Did a drawing of Sting on it. It was so fun. Oh man, I have so many amazing memories of watching Sting's career. And then seeing him come back when I never thought he would return to wrestling, and that's when he came back to AEW. I was like, holy crap, wow, that came out of nowhere. But it did happen during the pandemic, which was unfortunate, because I feel like had there been an audience there, a big audience, that would have been a huge moment. It still was a huge moment, but I felt like the pandemic kind of ruined it. Like, damn, there's only like 50 fans there. You can imagine if there was like 30,000 fans there, it'd be insane. Because nobody knew that he was coming back. So that was a big shocker. So you definitely got to look at that as one of the biggest moments in AEW history. So, yeah, I have to give credit to AEW. They always showed him a lot of respect, and, he got to have some great matches, and he's still doing some crazy stuff, doing some skydives and swan dives outside of the ring and going through tables and taking bumps, taking power bombs, and like, damn, this guy's still doing it. He still got it. You still got it. You still got it. Yeah, but he became a tag team with Darby Allin. Pretty much his whole run, he was with Darby Allin, kind of molding, shaping him, and being his mentor, So it's great to see him finally win the tag team championships with Darby Allin and have his last run of his career. And, yeah, I got real emotional about it, so that's why I'm here making this video, to pay my respect and show what an amazing performer Sting is, and how he is one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. He's in my top 4. I'd say he's probably number 4 of all time for me. I think he's amazing. He's had so many legendary matches. He's gone up against the best and brightest that the sport has to offer, and he's had so many incredible runs, so many championships, so many world title runs in WCW and TNA, multiple time champion. And yeah, he's got one of the most interesting and layered careers when you go back to his Crow Sting look, and then he was with the NWO Wolfpack. That was a huge run too. Great run in TNA, even reinvented himself in TNA when he became the Joker Sting, which was really cool too. I was like, wow, it's so creative. And he came out with like the red suit. It looked weird, crazy, you know. Channel a little bit of Heath Ledger style Joker there later on in his TNA career. That was so cool. And even though his run in WWE was brief, it was memorable. You know, he had that huge match, and it was awesome. It was so cool to see Sting in such a huge event like that, in the big match like that with 100,000 people. So, yeah, Sting is such an important part of wrestling history. It cannot be understated. And thank you, Sting. That's all I want to say is thank you, Sting. You are the man. You are a god of pro wrestling. And thank you, Sting, for everything you have done. Nothing but the utmost respect for you and your career and your talents and your creativity, your charisma. Everything you did in wrestling was amazing. So thank you, Sting. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Pro Wrestling Chat. Tune in and lock up.